When Ajax met Brighton in the Europa League in October 2023, it was a meeting of a team that won League One, the third tier, in 2011, the same season that Ajax won their 30th top-flight title. A meeting of a team who finished runner-up in the Championship in 2017 against a team that finished runner-up in the Europa League the same season. History dictated that Ajax would win comfortably, and a look back through time confirms that Ajax are rather good. They've won pretty much every trophy available to win during their history and have finished in the top two of the Eredivisie 62 times. They're the most successful club in the whole of the Netherlands, yet a quick look at the Eredivisie table shows that they're not rather good at the moment, and they followed this up with a 2-0 loss in that match to Brighton. So what's happened over in Amsterdam? Why have Ajax gone from being serial contenders in the league in Europe to dropping into the relegation spots? Why have they had 85 different managers in the past couple of years, and why might it get worse before it gets better? Stick around to find out. As I write this, or type it as that's far more convenient, Ajax are bottom of the Eredivisie with only one win in 8, although they've got 2 matches in hand and are already 25 points off top. They played their perennial title rivals PSV at the end of October, and a close match might just show that this is a temporary loss of form. So how did they do? Oh dear. It's easy to write off Ajax's bad form on a bad space cake in one of their local cafes, but the problems run much deeper than that. They're currently going through their worst start to a season in 60 years, going back to 65. That season they finished 13th, the only time they finished outside the top 6 in the Eredivisie. Even Almere City are currently above them, a team who have never played in the Eredivisie before this season and were only founded in 2001. So why? To understand this, we need to look at how Ajax was set up and what's changed. In recent years, Ajax have been very stable, with Erik ten Hag, when he used to win matches, in charge for 4.5 years, and Mark Overmars was their director of football for nearly 10 years, and that stability brought them great success. Overmars became a master at recruitment of excellent young players, many from South America, and it was through Overmars that they brought players like Edson Alvarez and the Butcher of Amsterdam, Lisandro Martinez, from there. He was also a master at selling key players at the right time and for the right price, such as Hakim Ziyech, Frenkie de Jong and Matthijs de Ligt for massive fees. This, along with Ten Hag's excellent coaching, meant that Ajax could sustain their recent successes on the field and replace players when needed with Overmars' contacts. And Overmars was always immensely popular. He won the Champions League as a player in '95 and brought success as a director, as Ajax hadn't played in the Champions League knockout round since a few years before he joined, but changed that with some excellent recruitment. During his time there, Ten Hag was one of the most in-demand managers in the world. He'd won promotion in his first season at Go Ahead Eagles, with Mark Overmars hiring him when he was director there, and later moved to Ajax, again brought over by Overmars when he was now the director there, where he won 3 league titles, one with fine attacking football that brought their highest goal tally for nearly 50 years, and in 2019 oversaw their run to the Champions League semi-final, beating Real Madrid on the way, where only Lucas Moura playing the game of his life and scoring in the last second prevented them from reaching the final. Whilst it's pretty hard to imagine beating Real Madrid in the Champions League then getting knocked out by Spurs, Ten Hag's stock had risen, but this shouldn't come as a surprise. He'd already done a great job in Amsterdam and was headhunted by Pep when he was at Bayern to lead their reserve team. ETH also led Utrecht to the KNVB Cup final, but he wasn't well received by the Ajax fans, who tend to crave big and charismatic names. So in came Ten Hag, who had a career at low profile clubs, and his first few months weren't very successful, and fans called for Peter Bosz to come back, their manager who took them to the Europa League final against Man United in 2017. Soon they won the double for the first time in 17 years and reached that semi. As a result of that season and players in the shop window ripping it up in the Champions League, they lost a few key players, notably de Jong and de Ligt, and ETH had to start all over again. And he started well, but after the winter break they started to slide before the pandemic stopped the league. That summer, 2020, Van de Beek and Ziyech left too, so Ten Hag had a bit of a dilemma on his hands. So how did he solve this? Kudus and Ante arrived, Anthony in a deal which had already been agreed a few months before. Younger talents like Ryan Gravenberch and Per Schuurs emerged. Others were improving, such as Noussair Mazraoui, Edson Alvarez, Lisandro Martinez and even Andre Onana. Yes, that one. And their lack of a target man was solved when Ten Hag contacted his old pal Sebastian Haller, who played under him at Utrecht, who then joined. An admin error in 2021 might have prevented Haller from playing in the Europa League, when, believe it or not, they forgot to put his name on the players list to register him, but he turned out to be a good signing when he was allowed to play. And as for Ten Hag himself, he admitted to trying to implement Pep's structures at Ajax with the start of play, and the results spoke for themselves. So with his style, both on and off the pitch, and results, it was inevitable that a big club would come in for him. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but Man United came in for him. Sorry, Man U fans. And off he went to Old Trafford. But this move came at a bit of an odd hard time for the club, and they have Overmars to thank for that. Overmars didn't have the best system. Rather than using proper scouting and database management, Overmars conducted a lot of his work via WhatsApp on his phone, using his name and reputation as a player, and he oversaw many key issues off the field, including large profits in the transfer market, where he could then use his contacts, especially in South America, for suitable replacements. For example, in the 3 years leading up to January 2021, Ajax signed a few top players such as Alvarez, Antony, Haller, Kudus and Tadic, all who were very successful for them, in particular Tadic, who engaged beast mode while at Ajax with his goals, assists and overall link-up play, and Alvarez was their defensive rock. Overmars even got rid of the salary cap to bring Tadic in, a player who was nominated for the Ballon d'Or in 2019, one of 4 Ajax players on the shortlist. So it didn't help Ajax's cause when Overmars ballsed up, quite literally, as he sent pictures of his pork sword from the toilet at the head offices and sent it unsolicited to a female member of staff, which was later described as part of a broader pattern. As a result, Overmars then resigned in February 2022. Overmars just didn't help himself. Actually, he did help himself, that was the problem. But the football powers must really take these kinds of allegations seriously, because Overmars hadn't worked in football since. Oops, sorry. He was Antwerp's new director of football 6 weeks later, causing 4 sponsors to drop their support the same week. Ten Hag supported Overmars, and it's no surprise that he joined Man United only 2 months after Overmars left. Unfortunately, as Overmars made a cock of himself, quite literally, without his system the project fell apart. Without Overmars' phone and WhatsApp messages, which in hindsight was probably a good thing, who knows what they'd find on that phone now, their successor struggled, which included Overmars' direct successor Harry Hamstra. The transfer window since the pair left haven't been as well balanced. A lot of key players were sold or left, with their replacements just not up to standard. Owen Vendal, a top prospect at AZ as a left back, and now he's just been left back out the squad, on loan at Antwerp as he was underwhelming at Ajax. And so was Calvin Bassey, who was signed after a couple of good years at Rangers but played more like Shirley Bassey, and ended up all by himself as he was sold at a slight loss to Fulham. In between their signings and leavings, manager Danny Murphy, it's Alfred Schroeder, Ten Hag's replacement, and a man who was previously his assistant to Ajax as well as assistant manager at Barcelona, so must be pretty decent then. He was only in charge for around 200 days before he was fired after poor results, which I ain't surprised given the problems with the squad. Their director of football left after those failures, but more on him shortly, and at the end of the season in 2023, Ajax finished outside the top 2 for the first time since 2009, 13 points beyond champs Feyenoord. Johnny Eitinger came in after Schroeder to steady the Ajax ship, but beat Schroeder's record, and not in a good way, only being in charge for 154 days before being given his marching orders. Then Maurice Stein came in and went one better when getting sacked after 114 days. Schroeder led Ajax to their lowest league finish in 14 years and failed to win any trophies, whereas Stein did a great job at Sparta Rotterdam before moving to Ajax. But unlike the song, this wasn't Rotterdam or anywhere, as he played a different style of football to what Ajax were used to, had a poor tactical approach and complained about the new players not having quality, as you do, before he was sacked too. Before I go any further, if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider hitting that subscribe button and the like button if you feel so inclined. But whatever you decide to do, let's get on with the video and back to that director I mentioned earlier, this guy. This is Sven Mislintat, and I don't think he's particularly well liked in Amsterdam. Arsenal fans might not remember him fondly, but Sven worked wonders at Dortmund and Stuttgart, overseeing the signings of players like Aubameyang and Lewandowski when he was at Dortmund, and oversaw an Ajax spend of €109 million in the 2023 summer transfer window on players such as Manswerk, Ramaj and Van den Boomen, which was as much as the other clubs combined and the most I've ever spent in a summer window. And this is a big deal. Ajax have consistent net profits and are the only club in the country who are listed on the stock exchange, so profit is effectively their goal. While it's true that failing to qualify for the Champions League seriously impacted their budget, Ajax sold half their squad and made it 2 summers in a row where they'd spent more than €100 million, having never done that before. You know something's going wrong when they go so far against their usual methods. Mislintat also agreed to terminate the contract of captain Dusan Tadic after he criticised the transfer activity, perhaps rightly so, when he said he was surrounded by lesser players and said the club lacks ambition, which wasn't well received, and vice-captain Jurien Timber was sold to Arsenal. To further their problems, Davy Klaassen and Mohamed Kudus both left in the last few days of the transfer window, leaving barely any time to find replacements, and all of a sudden, Ajax are suddenly without 2 experienced players, plus their captain and vice-captain, all of who had played a combined total of around 600 matches for the club, and that's a lot of experience and talent to lose lose without properly replacing. In their battering by PSV, the average age of that squad was just over 23. Only 3 of their first 11 were over the age of 24, 5 of that lineup were only signed this summer, and one of their defenders is still legally a child, so you can probably see why they're in a bit of a pickle. Steven Bergwijn is their current captain, and it shows their lack of leaders. They're just not any Blinds, Stadiges and even Stecklenbergs anymore. It seems a bit odd singling out the youthfulness of the squad, given that youth development has been a massive part of how Ajax operate over the years, but players have always been blooded into the team alongside more experienced players. That's just not happening now. Some of those signings are also odd, with signings such as winger Carlos Borges, who had never played a top flight match in his life, so make the potential fee of €19 million make sense. Chuba Akpom couldn't cut it in the Greek league with PAOK, but was signed for up to €14 million from Borough. The striker who had a good season at Borough, but before that had never scored more than 8 league goals in a season, and that was in the Greek league. Ramadra signed for £7 million, a keeper who played 2 matches for Frankfurt in 2 years and conceded in both, so he must be a really promising keeper and has slotted straight into their team then. Oh, good one. They instead recalled keeper Jay Horta early from his loan at Aberdeen, where he only played 4 games in 6 months, and decided to make him their regular keeper instead. Anyway, after their poor start to the season, Mislin Twat allegedly stormed into the dressing room to threaten to sack Mr. Stein in front of the players, which backfired when Stein wasn't even in there. But by the end of the September, Mislin Twat sacked himself after losing the support of the club and dressing room. Part of that lost support was a signing of this dude. Borna Sosa is a decent left-back who's Ajax's top assister this season with 3 despite only playing 3 matches, and was raided from Mislintat's old club Stuttgart for £7 million. The problem here is that Mislintat must have just completely forgotten that he had a conflict of interest in the transfer, as Sosa's agent owns a company which holds a decent amount of shares in Mislintat's company Match Metrics. Silly Sven, so forgetful. Anyway, the investigation's still ongoing and he was sacked while they probe him. Not that kind of probe, that'd be weird, like an investigation probe. But Sven was always an unpopular appointment anyway. He had a mixed record before joining Ajax and may have done a decent job in Dortmund, but was later banished from their training ground. Oversaw Stuttgart getting promoted to the Bundesliga, but didn't really impress the fans as that promotion was widely expected, and later went to Arsenal where he oversaw 8 players being signed such as Guendouzi, Socrates, Leno and Aubameyang. And to really top it off for the Ajax fans, he was German, as Ajax have a scepticism to outsiders. In fact, if you look at any position of power at Ajax, such as all the director positions for example, you'll see that they're all Dutch, apart from Mislintat. This might explain the appointments of managers such as Heitinga and current caretaker boss Hedviges Maduro. There's very much a do-it-our-way philosophy at Ajax, probably born out of an influence from Cruyff, and things have just turned a bit sour. The media ridiculed the potential appointment of Sir Tel Knudsen, who manages Bodo/Glimt, and as a result of this Ajax way, they've had a rule for the past 20 odd years where they'd only hired Dutch managers, as they haven't had a foreign manager since Morten Olsen was hired in 1997. When he was sacked at the end of 98, the club vowed they'd only have Dutch managers. You could argue that maybe it's time to break that tradition for the sake of the club, but that's a convo for another day. And although Eric wasn't a huge hit to begin with, he helped endear himself to the fans when he rejected the Netherlands job while in Amsterdam, then won the 3 titles. But was Ten Hag's last Eredivisie win just papering over the cracks? That season, Ajax had an excellent start to the season but struggled over the line. They won 2-1 at their closest rivals, PSV, with a very dubious winning goal from Mazraoui, as it looked like the ball had gone over the touchline. But VAR and the ref gave Ajax the benefit of the doubt, and I know what you're thinking, it's unusual that VAR got it wrong, but it's true. Then 3 games before the end of the season, the very controversial penalty awarded to Feyenoord for them to equalise against PSV in the 96th minute helped Ajax over the line. Even the Dutch FA agreed, publishing a statement the following day admitting the mistake. Ajax won the title 3 days later with a 5-0 win over Heerenveen. Believe it or not, but Anthony was perhaps the best player of the season in the whole league, a year after becoming Olympic champion. But these controversial wins maybe hid some real problems, which was evident when they lost the cup final to PSV despite going in front. So to summarise, Ajax lost to 2 men who gave the club direction. They've lost many key players. The new signings didn't have any real patterns and seemed like panic buys. There's a complete lack of resilience, as one bad season seemingly causes them to panic sell 9 first-team players and become a crisis club. But apart from that, they're doing okay. But maybe young Ajax with their excellent youth squad. After all, 10 of the 18 players in their matchday squad for those Champions League semi-finals were graduates of their academy. Surely they have a positive future ahead of them. Young Ajax at the time of recording are rock bottom of the Eredivisie with 1 win in 12. They're currently managed by Dave Foss, who used to be the Rangers assistant manager, and their position just confirms that the management of the club stinks from top to bottom. And that brings us to this season, where other problems continue. Der Klassiker was abandoned in September due to items being thrown on the pitch in process to Ajax getting battered by Feyenoord, which saw the ref use the Eredivisie rule of 3 strikes and you're out with regards to anything thrown on the pitch. Then after the match, the Ajax fans showed their support for the club by smashing up their stadium. Of course, what better way to support your club? Then just days later, striker Brian Brobby accidentally caused a serious injury to Waalwijk keeper Etienne Varsen, where some of the Ajax fans reportedly chanted, "Never mind, the guy's dead," while he lay there unconscious. Chief exec Edwin van der Sar resigned after last season, possibly in support for Overmars, and his replacement, Alain Schoos, isn't due to start until March 2024, so it's difficult to see where accountability lies for the time being. Louis van Gaal has returned to the club as an advisor, whatever that is, and ex-player head Vihes Madugo has lost both of his games as manager with an aggregate score 7-2. So sorry Ajax fans, but it might be getting worse before it gets better. But I will throw you a little crumb of optimism, as the only time the club finished outside the top 10 was in 1965 when they finished 13th. The following year they won the title, although they did have Cruyff, which probably helped. And the fans are reacting this season. Ajax have the highest average attendance in the league, selling out the Johan Cruyff Arena every week, but they don't report the actual attendances, which is why for every sold out game you can see empty patches in the crowd. And all of this just 2 years after Ajax melted their Eredivisie trophy into 42,000 silver stars, one for each season ticket holder, as they wanted to give something back to the fans. Whilst Ajax have been in freefall, we should also quickly mention the rise of Feyenoord under manager Arne Slot, leading them to only their second title in 24 years with 2 games to spare, even rebuilding after losing key players after their Conference League final loss, which doesn't help Ajax's position. But this video is about Ajax, not Feyenoord, so I won't bore you with that. But Ajax fans will be glad to hear that a rebuilding job isn't the first they've had, after they needed a massive rebuild in the 90s. After winning the Champions League in 95, they even went on to win the Intercontinental Cup the same year, which is like the Club World Cup's older brother. Yet they were massively impacted by some changes. Firstly, they moved into their newly built Amsterdam Arena the next summer, which impacted them as fans disliked the stadium at first. Then they lost 3 little birds on free transfers when Edgar Davids, Michael Reisiger and Nwankwo Kanu all moved to Milan, with Kanu moving to the blue and black half of the city. To top it off, Finny de George also left for Betis, and the following year Patrick Kluivert rejects the contract extension and moved on a free, again to Milan. At the time, manager Louis van Gaal said, "When you see so many players leave the club, and when 6 from last season's lineup are injured, you have to build a whole new team. That's a problem because that takes time, and we have no time." Sound familiar? Ironically, one of the players struggling with injury that season was Overmars, but LVG went a step further when he blamed some of their poor play on issues with the pitch as it was being used for other events such as a Tina Turner performance. And Ajax did prove that they were simply the best when they won the double the following year in '98, although Van Gaal had already left as he'd previously announced he would leave the club when his contract ran out. But despite all that turmoil, Ajax survived and even thrived. During that period, a club official once said that when they wanted another young player for the first team, quote, "We just go along to the pond and hook another one out." The structure was in place and Ajax were consistently high performers, so it looks like Ajax just need to refill the pond and take a few bad fishes out if they want to get back to where they were. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please consider liking it, dropping a comment because algorithm, watching some of my other stuff such as these on screen, or even smashing that subscribe button like an Ajax fan smashes their stadium. But above all, thanks for watching and your support, and I'll see you in the next vid. See you later.